My husband threw me out into the freezing snow wearing nothing but my nightgown, left me there to die while his family laughed from the warm house. He thought I was just some poor black girl he could discard. He had no idea my brother was about to make him pay. Before we dive into this story, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss stories like this. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done in my situation. Now, let me tell you how my nightmare turned into his worst mistake. My name is Monique, and 3 years ago I thought I was living a fairy tale. I was 25, working as a nurse at County General, and I met Derek at a community fundraiser. He was 32, owned a small construction company, and had this smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He was charming, attentive, and he pursued me like I was the most precious thing in the world. 6 months later, we were married in a small ceremony at his mother's church. Looking back now, I can see all the red flags I ignored. How he slowly convinced me to stop hanging out with my friends because they were negative influences. How he suggested I quit my nursing job because he wanted to take care of me, and I deserved to relax. How he took over our finances completely, saying I shouldn't worry my pretty head about bills and money. At the time, I thought it was love. I thought it was him being a provider, being a man who wanted to protect his wife. I was so wrong. Derek's mother, Barbara, never liked me from the start. She made it clear at our wedding that she thought her son was marrying beneath him, never mind that I had my nursing degree and came from a good family. To her, I wasn't good enough, would never be good enough. But I tried. Lord knows I tried to win that woman over. When she said she needed a place to stay temporarily after her apartment had some water damage, I welcomed her into our home. That was 6 months ago, and she never left. With Barbara in the house, everything got worse. She criticized everything I did. My cooking was too bland or too spicy. My cleaning wasn't thorough enough. My hair, my clothes, the way I spoke. Nothing was ever right. And Derek? He never said a word in my defense. Not once. He'd just sit there while his mother tore me apart, then he'd go to his office or leave for work. I felt like I was disappearing, becoming smaller and smaller in my own home. Then came the late nights. Derek started coming home at 9, then 10, then midnight, always with an excuse about work, about projects, about meeting with clients, but I could smell perfume on his shirts, perfume that wasn't mine. His phone was always face down on the table, and if it rang when I was nearby, he'd grab it like it was on fire and walk into another room. I knew something was wrong, but I was scared to confront it. Where would I go? I had no job, no money of my own, no car in my name. I'd let myself become completely dependent on a man who was clearly pulling away from me. Everything came crashing down on a January night so cold that the weather report was warning people to stay indoors. It was 11 o'clock at night, and I was in bed trying to read, trying to distract myself from the fact that Derek still wasn't home. Then I heard laughter coming from downstairs. Not just Derek's laugh, but a woman's laugh I didn't recognize, and Barbara's cackling that always made my skin crawl. I pulled on my robe over my nightgown and walked downstairs. The scene in my living room is burned into my memory forever. Derek was sitting on our couch, his arm around a blonde woman I'd never seen before. She was wearing a tight red dress and heels, her makeup perfect, her hand resting on his thigh. Barbara was pouring them wine, smiling wider than I'd ever seen her smile, acting like this was the most normal thing in the world. I stood there in the doorway, and Derek looked up at me with eyes so cold I almost didn't recognize him. The woman turned around, and I realized I had seen her before, in a photo on Derek's desk at his office. Amanda, his secretary. She looked me up and down, then actually laughed. Not a nervous laugh, but a mean, mocking laugh that made my stomach turn. I found my voice somehow and asked what was happening. Derek stood up slowly, like he had all the time in the world, and said the words that shattered everything. Amanda and I have been together for 8 months, Monique. Did you really think you were special? Did you really think I married you for love? His voice was so casual, so cruel, like he was commenting on the weather. Barbara chimed in then, her voice dripping with satisfaction. My son needs a real woman, not some charity case. He felt sorry for you, that's all. But we're done pretending now." Amanda stood up and walked over to me, still holding her wine glass. She looked at my robe, my house slippers, my hair wrapped in a silk scarf for the night, and she actually wrinkled her nose like I smelled bad. "I don't know what he ever saw in you," she said. "But don't worry, I'll take good care of him now." I felt like I couldn't breathe. I turned to Derek, searching for any sign of the man I thought I married, any hint of remorse or humanity. There was nothing. He pulled my phone out of his pocket, the phone I'd left charging on the kitchen counter, and before I could react, he threw it against the wall. It shattered into pieces, and I watched my only connection to the outside world destroyed in seconds. What happened next, I still have nightmares about. Derek grabbed my arm, yanked me toward the front door, and ripped my heavy winter coat off the rack. Not to give to me, but to throw it across the room, out of my reach. I started screaming, asking what he was doing, begging him to stop. He opened the front door, and a blast of frigid air hit me like a physical force. The snow was coming down hard, and the wind was howling like something alive and angry. Derek pushed me out onto the front porch and I stumbled, my thin house slippers sliding on the ice. I turned around to go back inside and he blocked the doorway, his face twisted into something ugly and hateful. "You got nowhere to go," he said. "Nobody coming for you. Your brother sure as hell doesn't want you. He never responded to any of your messages, did he? Because he's ashamed of you, just like I am." Then he slammed the door in my face. I heard the lock click. I banged on that door with both fists, screaming until my throat was raw, begging them to let me back in. Through the window, I could see Barbara and Amanda laughing, holding their wine glasses, watching me like I was entertainment. Derek just turned his back and walked away. The cold hit me then, really hit me. My nightgown was thin cotton, meant for sleeping in a heated house, not for a Michigan winter night. My slippers were already soaked through, my feet going numb. I couldn't feel my fingers. The snow was falling so hard I could barely see the houses across the street, and it was late enough that everyone's lights were off. I started walking, stumbling really, trying to get to a neighbor's house, any house, somewhere I could find help. I don't know how long I walked. It felt like hours, but was probably only 15 minutes. I fell twice, my knees hitting the frozen ground, my hands plunging into snow that felt like it was burning my skin. I couldn't stop shaking. My thoughts were getting fuzzy, slow, like my brain was shutting down. I remember thinking this was how I was going to die, alone in the snow because I trusted the wrong man. Then I saw headlights. A black Mercedes pulled up beside me and a man's voice called out, asking if I was all right. I must have looked like something out of a horror movie, a black woman in a nightgown stumbling through a snowstorm in the middle of the night. He got out of his car, put his own coat around me, and helped me into the warm vehicle. I couldn't even speak, I was shaking so hard. He drove me to a 24-hour diner and called an ambulance. At the hospital, they told me I had early-stage hypothermia. Another 30 minutes outside and I might not have made it. They wrapped me in heated blankets, gave me warm fluids, and asked if there was anyone they could call. I gave them a number I hadn't dialed in 4 years, a number I'd memorized but been too scared to use. My brother Terrence's number. See, there's a part of this story I haven't told you yet. 4 years ago, when Derek and I started dating, he convinced me that my brother didn't want anything to do with me. Terrence had moved to Chicago years before, started working in commercial real estate, and yes, he'd done well for himself. Derek told me that Terrence was embarrassed by his family back home, that he'd left us all behind because we weren't successful enough, weren't sophisticated enough for his new life. And I believed him. When Terrence didn't respond to my wedding invitation, I thought it confirmed everything Derek had said. I stopped reaching out. I let my brother go. What I didn't know was that Derek had been intercepting everything. Every email Terrence sent, every letter that came to the house, every attempt my brother made to contact me. Derek deleted them all, sent them back, blocked his number on my phone without me knowing. He isolated me completely, and I never even realized it was happening. When Terrence answered the phone that night at 2 a.m, his voice was frantic. He thought something terrible had happened, and I guess something terrible had. I broke down, told him everything through sobs and chattering teeth. There was a long silence, and then he said something that made me cry even harder. "Monique, I've been trying to reach you for 4 years. I thought you didn't want to talk to me. Baby sister, I never left you behind. I would never leave you behind." He was on the first flight out of Chicago that morning. By the time he walked into my hospital room 6 hours later, I barely recognized him. My big brother, who used to work 2 jobs to help pay for my nursing school, had transformed into someone who looked like he belonged on the cover of a business magazine. Tailored suit, expensive watch, the kind of confident presence that makes people pay attention. But when he hugged me, he was just Terrence again, and I was just his little sister who needed him. We talked for hours. He told me about his business, how he'd started small buying distressed properties and renovating them, how it had grown into a commercial real estate portfolio worth over $800 million. He owned office buildings, shopping centers, apartment complexes across 5 states. He showed me the emails he'd sent that I never received, the letters that had been returned, the birthday cards sent back marked "Return to Sender." Every piece of evidence that Derek had been lying to me for years. Then Terrence made some phone calls. Within an hour, he knew everything about Derek's financial situation, and it was bad. The construction company was barely staying afloat, held together by loans Derek couldn't really afford to repay. The house had a mortgage that was underwater, worth less than what was owed. He'd maxed out 3 credit cards and had been borrowing money from suppliers with promises he couldn't keep. Derek was 1 bad month away from losing everything, and he'd been hiding it all behind a smile and expensive dinners with his secretary. Terrence looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before, something cold and determined, and he said, "He's going to regret what he did to you. I promise you, by tomorrow, he'll be begging." The next morning, Derek woke up to find a legal notice taped to his front door. Foreclosure proceedings on the house. When he tried to call his bank, he found out his business accounts had been frozen. His suppliers started calling, saying they couldn't extend any more credit. 3 of his biggest contracts were suddenly canceled, the clients citing concerns about his company's financial stability. His phone was ringing off the hook, and every call was bad news. Then a line of expensive cars pulled up in front of his house. Terrence stepped out of the lead vehicle, and I was with him. I'd been released from the hospital that morning, and I was wearing clothes my brother had bought for me, warm and expensive and making me feel human again. I watched Derek's face go pale when he recognized Terrence from our wedding photos. Barbara came to the door behind him, and when she saw my brother, I swear all the color drained out of her face. Terrence walked up to that porch like he owned it, and in a way, he was about to. His lawyer was with him, carrying a briefcase full of documents. Terrence's voice was calm, almost pleasant when he spoke. "Derek, I want to thank you for being so careless with your financial situation. It made this all very easy." He explained it then, how he'd spent the night buying up Derek's debts, the mortgage on the house, the business loans, the credit card debt, everything. Derek now owed Terrence $340,000, and the payment was due immediately. Since Derek clearly couldn't pay, Terrence was prepared to accept alternative arrangements. The lawyer laid it all out. Derek would sign over the house to me, in my name only. The business assets would be sold and the money given to me as compensation for what I'd suffered. Derek had 24 hours to vacate the premises, taking only his personal belongings. A restraining order had been filed. Any attempt to contact me would result in immediate arrest. And Barbara, she had to go too, no exceptions. I watched my husband, the man who'd thrown me into the snow to die, drop to his knees on that porch. He was begging, actually begging, saying he didn't know, he'd made a mistake. Please give him another chance. He tried to reach for me, and Terrence stepped between us so fast, Derek flinched backward. "You left my sister to die in the snow," Terrence said, and his voice could have cut glass. "Be grateful you're not in jail. Be grateful I'm not doing to you what you deserve." Barbara tried to play the victim then, talking about how she was an old woman with nowhere to go. How could we be so cruel? Terrence didn't even look at her when he responded. You watched your son throw his wife into a snowstorm and you laughed. Pack your things. Both of you have until tomorrow morning. Derek asked about Amanda. Where was she? Couldn't she help him? Terrence's lawyer actually smiled at that. Ms. Amanda has blocked your number and informed her new boyfriend that she wants nothing to do with you. She was seen having dinner with him last night at the restaurant downtown. Even his mistress had abandoned him the moment things got difficult. That was 6 months ago. I'm standing in my house now, the house that's mine, that no one can take from me. I open a nursing clinic in town with an investment from Terrence, providing care for people who can't always afford it. I reconnected with my old friends, the ones Derek had convinced me to abandon. My brother and I have Sunday dinner together every week, making up for lost time. I'm happy. I'm free. I'm myself again. Derek is working 2 jobs now, barely making rent on a studio apartment across town. His mother moved to Arizona to live with her sister, and from what I hear, they're both miserable. Amanda moved on to someone else, someone with money and status she could use. Derek lost everything because he underestimated me, because he thought I was alone and powerless. But here's what I learned through all of this. Silence protects the wrong people. Speaking up, reaching out, asking for help, that's not weakness, that's strength. Never let anyone cut you off from family who truly loves you, because those connections might save your life one day. And never ever underestimate a Black woman with a powerful brother who actually cares. We're not alone, we're not powerless, and we don't forget. If this story moved you, smash that like button right now. Subscribe if you haven't already, because I share stories like this every week. Comment below and tell me, should Monique have shown Derek mercy, or did he get exactly what he deserved? Have you ever had family come through for you when you needed them most? Share your story in the comments, and remember, stay strong, know your worth, and never let anyone dim your light. I'll see you in the next video.